Welcome, everyone. Welcome again to the Positive Mindset Podcast with me, Matt Stillwell. We are well into series two, where we're talking to some really interesting people about some fascinating subjects. And today, I'm talking to Chris Burns. Now, Chris Burns is a marketing and social media guru. He's into digital marketing. He's a serial entrepreneur, consultant, public speaker, podcaster, and author. Author of the brilliant book, King of the Mental Golf Swing, How to Win at Golf and Life by Thinking Differently. And it's in this book that he recounts his life as a golfer, as a golf coach, and how the lessons we learn on the golf course can be translated quite easily to our life, something that we talk about a lot on this podcast. So I hope you enjoy it. Chris runs a number of businesses, is also a co-host of the Hustle Nation podcast, which I encourage you to all go and listen to. All the links for everything you need are in the description, so please go and have a look at those. Our conversation took place on the 24th of April, 2023. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with the fantastic Chris Burns. It's my pleasure to introduce Chris Burns. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Good. Welcome. I know it's quite early where you are. You're in the US. Whereabouts in the US?
I am. I'm in Wisconsin.
Okay. So you're about 8:30 in the morning-ish.
Yeah. Are you familiar with Whistling Straits? I know you're a golfer.
Very much so. Yeah.
So Whistling Straits about maybe 50 minutes away from where I live.
Oh, nice. Very nice.
But the closest thing to Scotland we have here in the Midwest.
How would you describe yourself, Chris, and describe what you do?
Yeah, I'm kind of glad you asked me that question because I've had a lot of time to reflect on that. I used to be really bad because I never really enjoyed talking about myself. So for years I would say, "Hey, I'm Chris. I'm an entrepreneur. I work in marketing," and that was kind of it. Really boring, blah type of a response. And I heard some other people say things like, "Oh, I'm so and so, and I specialize in working with small businesses, and we do A, B, and C." I thought, "Wow, that's kind of a fun, interesting intro." And then I started to get more specific, and I would have to focus on one business because I can't say, "Well, I own this business and I own that business, and I'm a published author." I'm like, "Whoa, that would sound very arrogant." So I finally just started to hone in on the one thing I'm really passionate about, which is marketing, and started to tell people that my name is Chris Burns. I'm a digital marketing consultant. I specialize in working with small to medium-sized businesses as well as nonprofits. And my real thing is that I make social media so easy, it's fun again. And so fun, you're going to be excited to manage your social media. And so that started kind of developing some thought-provoking questions from people. And I realized, wow, maybe what I crafted was interesting. And so it got people asking me questions, got me talking. And while I do other things, marketing is really my jam and where I spend the most of my time. And so I also do have a podcast and a leadership business called Hustle Leaders. The podcast is called Hustle Nation. And I do have a book that we'll probably talk a little bit about later on called King of the Mental Swing. I do some other things as well, but my real focus, 75% of the time is marketing and 25% of the time is on my leadership business.
The podcast is all about a positive mindset, and this isn't supposed to be that false positivity that you hear about everything needs to be sunshine and rainbows, because life isn't like that. But it's about framing stuff a little differently. It's about growth mindset. It's about seeing the opportunity in potential failures and that kind of vibe. So with that in mind, I wondered, what is the term, the phrase positive mindset? What does it mean to you? If that's not too broad a question, and how has it affected your career, your life so far?
Yeah, well, if you would have asked me that probably 15 years ago, I would have been, in my late 20s. And I don't know that I would have given you a great answer because I don't know that I fully understood what it meant or how it would have impacted me. But at that point in my life, I did realize that, positive energy is a good thing. I had started to notice some people that I would call energy zombies come into my life, and everything was negative. Everything was someone else's fault, and it was woe is me. And I had a moment where I was like, God, I hope I'm never like that around people because I can't stand that. It brings you down. It sucks all the energy out of you, and you just leave feeling like, I've been brought down a couple levels. So to me, I think that it's a choice. I think that you can choose to see, walk, talk, and act the positive side of things, the silver lining, as I call it, or you can choose to be the realist, which to me is like being a BS version of being a positive person, where it's like, well, in actuality, why should we expect this, and well, I'm just being real with you. But in actuality, if you do have that positive mindset, you see the positive side of everything. And so I hate to get into anything that's morbid, but I always have the chance to say, and my mind just functions like that because it's been programmed like that for so many years. So I am often trying to, and when I'm not, my wife pulls me back in because she knows that's kind of my MO. But I think it just starts by, you wake up in the morning and you have to say, like, this is going to be a great day. And some of it is also based on the actions that you choose to take or partake in. So for example, almost every single morning, at least during the week, unless I have something that's getting in the way, I have at least a 20-minute workout session. Now, that's not a lot of time, but it's enough. And it also is enough to change the way that I feel throughout the day. So it gives me more energy. And I will say this is when you have this version of self-care, it's amazing how you can bring your best self almost subconsciously, bring that positive mindset to the table on meetings and podcasts and work with your family, or just organically. And so to me, I recognize that, yes, I can choose to do all these things. And sometimes it's hard to flip the switch and hop on a Zoom call and just be real chippy and real happy to be there, because people can spot that it could be fake. But I think if you really prioritize self-care, and for some of us, that means getting a massage, going for a walk, going to play golf, getting more sleep, eating well, working out, any of those things, and all of those things potentially, you can bring your best self to work or to life, you will have that positive mindset. And it's amazing how other people like to be around that energy. And so you will see a lot of things change when you latch onto that for a longer period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. The choice, as you said, it is a choice, right? And this idea that you can just, like you say, flip a switch. I'm always interested in the people that ask the question of, well, how do I do that? And I find it's about self-awareness. And you kind of already alluded to it. You may have answered that question a little differently some years ago, and there comes a point, I guess, during your life where the self-awareness kind of just gets better, just clicks in, and you can see. How did you deal with those energy zombies, as you put it, or when you, I guess maybe you come across them now, but are you more aware of it now? And how do you deal with people who are perhaps zapping the energy? Let's keep it in terms of meetings in the workspace.
Yeah, when it comes to work, I've actually found myself having to either fire a client or just choose not to renew work with that particular client. And negative energy can come in a lot of different ways. It could be people who are micromanagers. So for example, I had a contract work, probably one of the largest, if not the largest contract I've ever had. And I chose not to renew it because some individuals were choosing to get super involved, and it just took a lot of the fun out of it that we had in the beginning. And I said, this is a recipe for disaster. If I stay on, I'm probably going to end up getting fired. So it's best for me and, my outlook and my energy when you can leave on your own terms rather than getting released. And so I just said, look, this is not a fit for me. I need to move on. And so I think you can do that with clients. If you're like a one-to-one coach and someone's paying you a lot of money and you say, look, these are the 3 things you need to do between now and our next meeting. If that continually doesn't happen, some people cannot be helped because they cannot help themselves. And so if you spot that, you need to move on. I've also had people very close to me who, outside of business, they would have a medical issue, and it was always the fault of the doctor, not the fault of themselves. It was always the fault of someone else, the reason why they were running late, or, I couldn't do this because of that, and always placing blame on somebody else. And to me, I think it's a very attractive quality when someone takes ownership and takes responsibility. And that accountability factor is also so key in this king of the mental swing recipe, but it's also so key in life when someone can step up and say, look, that's on me. Like I've been passing blame and I need to step up. And I found this as a leader in my business, whether I have a team of people or I'm solo, I take responsibility for almost everything, because if I would have set this communication, I would have set the standard in the beginning with the client, maybe this wouldn't have happened. I didn't get paid for 3 months. Well, maybe if I told the client up front that, look, we do require 50% upfront deposit. And at the end of 45 days, I should have said, look, we haven't gotten paid. We need to get a payment by the end of the month, or we're going to cut services, rather than continue to kick the can down the road and then being owed for 3 months of work. And so I just look back and say, what could I have done differently, rather than me placing the blame on someone else, because I'm not perfect. I know that there are lots of things I could have done differently when things go wrong. So I tend to try to look inside rather than look outside. And when it comes to those people, sometimes you either have to break ties in a nice way, or you just have to keep those individuals, like family members, at arm's length.
You mentioned there about the book. Let's have a little whistle-stop tour of how you got to actually writing that book.
Yeah, let's do it. So I'll give you the kind of journey from high school and beyond. And so for me, my interest in marketing started in high school, and I was a senior. I needed an elective class, and I was looking for a slacker class to take. And my guidance counselor suggested marketing. And I think in my head, I said, what the hell is marketing? I was 17 years old, and going into my senior year, I was like, okay. And she said, well, look, here's the deal. You get to work in the school store. You get to be in the DECA program, which is like a sales competition and a club for people in sales and marketing. And then you get to take a class trip to New York City. And as a small town kid from Wisconsin, I was like, yeah, I don't know what this is, but sign me up for that.
Yeah. So
that encouraged me. It was probably the first class that I really, truly enjoyed, where I was like, wow, I think I'm definitely a college student now. And so that I just was like so locked in that there was nothing else on the radar but marketing and business for me. And so I got a degree in marketing, worked in and out of a family business, and I'd been around the game of golf my whole life. And as I got to maybe a couple years out of college, I wanted to write a book. And truth be told, I've always been a very average student. And I will even say worse writer. I was not a strong writer whatsoever. But writing a book challenged me and forced me to get better. And now I would say I am average to above average, rather than being a very poor writer. And being around golf was a game that I loved very much. And I didn't want to write an instruction book because I knew that I was never a golf professional. I went to a bookstore a couple different times just because I like to read things about business and golf. And I recognized that there were other books that were books of golf quotes, which was kind of my idea. Someone else has done this.
Yeah.
So as I continued to look through hundreds and hundreds of books, I just kind of started to start writing. I just was like, you know what? I'm going to put all my thoughts and all my knowledge on paper, and let's see where this goes. So as I did it, it took several variations. I'm going to say that the title of the book probably changed about 50 times. The type of book changed multiple times. And there were probably 7 or 8 times, let's see, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, where I say this close, if you're listening, like centimeters away from just saying, you know what, screw it. I'm not in golf anymore. And in my late 20s, I left the game of golf and started more to focus on my marketing career, which has always been part of my life. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And so I just said, look, if I don't publish the book, I will end up being a bit of a fraud. So I said, all the things that I say and do and the way I act, if I quit, then everything I'll say will be, I'll be a fraud. That just, no one's going to take me seriously. So I said, okay, I'm not going to quit. I'm not a quitter. I like to finish things that I start. And so I just did it. And so it became a bit of a recipe book. And again, wanted to be very different, which is something you'll hear me talk about in marketing, is how can you rise above the noise when there's literally millions of instructional golf books or dozens of books on golf quotes, and also probably hundreds of books on the mental game. So I said, what can I do differently? I don't want to get into a boring chapter book. I don't want to lose people. So I finally said, look, I think success in anything is like a recipe. And if you look at any of the great tour players in any part of the world, a golf swing can look a lot different. And I don't care if you take three people who all have a similar looking golf swing, you can all spot about 4 or 5 different things they do. Maybe it's their grip, maybe it's their posture, their stance, but yet they're all highly successful. So I said, that's kind of interesting, because if you cook a pot of chili and you go around the world, you'll get literally millions of variations: spicy, not spicy, beans, no beans, cheese, no cheese, meat, ground turkey, steak, whatever, or maybe all the above. And none of them are right or wrong, but it's based on the ingredients you have or based on the outcome you want. And the same is true in business and in golf. Like, there's something to this. And I started to just, again, keep writing, keep expanding. And I realized that, well, let's categorize all these quotes that I already had, and a lot of things that I said or a lot of things that I made up, and let's put them into different types of ingredients. So fundamentals of the golf swing, developing a strategic practice, overcoming the variables and conquering adversity, how to have fun. I mean, all things you also need in business, by the way. How to finish, which is something that got added because I wasn't finishing my damn book. Mind and body control, something I need all the time. And so it just became very interesting that everything I was putting in there was also applying back to golf. And so as we talked about before the show, literally everything I do and I've done, like, this has just become a part of my DNA over my life, especially my adult life. And now it's starting to bleed through into my daily marketing, my one-to-one coaching, my client work, my strategic leadership business. And so it's just so interesting how this all came about. And I like to think it's different. And I hope that when people read the book, they will say, wow, this is a very unique take on a golf book. But really, as you've seen, because you've read a part of it, I'm hopeful that it's 60% golf, but 40%, if not otherwise, can at least be related to golf, or maybe 75% of it can be translated into business and life. And so that's why it's called King of the Mental Swing: How to Win at Golf and Life by Thinking Differently. And a lot of it is exactly that, what I said before, which is your choice.
The facade is golf, but everything in it you can relate back to, in your case, business, life, the questions you ask yourself, how to behave, how to act, choices you make, growth mindset, all this stuff is all built underneath it. Yeah, I'm impressed. And I've got a couple of quotes here. So the first one being, no matter your prowess or skill set, someone who has a king of the mental swing mindset can elevate their game. So that, first of all, really, really resonates with me. But when we say king of the mental swing, just for people who haven't read it,
yeah,
nutshell, what is that? What does it mean?
Yeah, so there's a chapter and right in the beginning toward the book that talks about defining what it is. And so for me, for so long, I say this: I was renting space in my mental domain. I was never 100% confident, maybe at times insecure, and that would be reflected in a lot of things I did in life. I was very shy growing up, sometimes introverted, very creative, which kind of comes with the territory there. And when I played golf, especially when I was like trying out for the high school golf team, I'd stand over the ball and I'd always be so nervous because I never believed in the outcome. My mind wasn't prepared to visualize the shot, the outcome that I wanted. I was actually visualizing the opposite. I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen if I slice this into the woods? Like, don't slice, don't slice, don't slice. Well, when you say the word slice, don't slice, don't slice, what do you think is going to happen? You slice.
Yeah.
And so I realized that I needed to take ownership of the way I was thinking, the way I was acting and talking, and everything else that comes with that, even my body language. And so I realized when I was writing the book, I need to define what it is and what it's not. And so to me, I want you to take ownership of your mind. As I'm thumbing through the book here, I'm looking for the page to get to a couple of definitions, but it's ultimately where you take ownership and you're no longer questioning the things that you do. You're no longer questioning the outcome. You can stand over the golf ball, or you can get to work feeling like you know what you're doing. But some of that also in life and in work comes with having a very crystal clear vision. And that same is true in golf. You need to visualize. You have to know what it is that you want. What do you want to achieve? What are we here to do today? And if you have that, you typically don't have a lot of self-doubt or negative self-talk. And so what I mean taking ownership is that most of the time that does not creep into your mind. I'm not going to let outside noise, whether it be bad weather in golf, poor conditions in golf, or it could be an angry client. It could be a grumpy employee. It could be something that goes wrong with my computer or my software. I'm not going to let those things impact my day, because I know I can still get everything done that I need to, and I can still serve my clients and still have a great day. I may have had a couple curveballs, but I am prepared because I've dealt with enough of that stuff in my life that I know it's not going to stop me. And so again, it is, I have ownership, and I am not going to let other things, other people, other variables get in my way. Because in golf, I heard this a lot with weather, because my son's on the golf team now in high school. He's like, oh, I got to play in the bad weather. I'm like, I don't know if you know this, but everyone else has to play in the same conditions.
Yep.
So you're not the only one who's being impacted. So actually it's to your advantage, I said. And he's like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, it's actually a huge advantage for you if you have the right mindset. And he's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I said, well, let me explain something to you. You realize that probably every single kid, and that these kids are 15 to probably 18 years old, every one of them is thinking the same thing. Oh, I don't know. I'm going to have to bring extra towels. I'm going to need rain gear. I'm going to need this. I'm going to need that. What am I going to do? And do I have to choke down or stand differently? It's like, no, you play the exact same game, the exact same way. Don't worry about it being wet. Don't worry about it being muddy. Don't worry about your shoes or that sand on your golf club. Just go and play, block everything out, and you will play better. And oh, by the way, he leapfrogged 2 kids on his team. Now, that's not monumental, but being basically 5 strokes better, he really only shot 2 strokes better than the day before, but being 5 strokes better because all those other kids played worse.
Yes.
Yeah. And he didn't. And I said, look, you did it. And so it's a mindset thing, and they're not prepared for it, but you can be prepared for it. And so to me, again, that goes back to the silver lining. I'm choosing to see the opportunity, and guess what? The best players play the best in the worst conditions, because
Absolutely.
they're headstrong as well as they are physically strong or equipped to play the game.
The game of golf can teach us life lessons. Simple as that. And it is a thing that I constantly talk about, constantly get people to talk about. And when you really sit and you think about it, there are so many parallels, so many similarities. The idea of remaining curious in stressful situations rather than, as you've just said, blaming.
Just the basic life skills of getting away from technology. Today, in today's world, I think so often one of the reasons that I still play and why I still love the game is because I just feel an inner zen. There's something about being away from electronics, and I oftentimes will either turn my phone off or put it on airplane mode. You get to connect one-to-one with people. And it to me, it's a bit of an old-fashioned way of doing business and communicating with people. I also think that the part of integrity and honesty is so key. If you want to do business with people, some of the best salespeople in the world will take their clients golfing or vice versa. And you can get a pretty good grasp of how honest and how much integrity someone has by the golf course. Yeah. And I mean that too by behavior. And so just controlling your emotions. If you play golf with someone who's a prospective client and they're throwing golf clubs, slamming them on the ground, cursing wildly. I mean, I'm all for the F word, don't get me wrong, but if you cannot control yourself, what do you think you're going to be like as a client or to work with? And so I think playing golf with someone is a great job interview. If you have a daughter that's looking to get married, take your future son-in-law golfing, and you'll know whether or not by the end of 9 holes if this person is going to be qualified to marry your daughter or not. And so to me, it just it brings out so much character in an individual, in that, again, I can choose to complain about the heat all I want, or I could say things like, God, it's so beautiful here, because you know what? You are in a climate like me where we have 6 months of winter, 3 months of summer, and then maybe a month of spring and fall. And so our summers are sacred. And yes, it can get to 100 degrees here. And so I choose to say, 100 degrees, you know what? Let's go get our golf clubs. Let's go play golf. We'll go to the pool after, and we'll enjoy this weather, because winters suck. So again, it's your choice to see the good and see the negative. And ultimately, I think there's just so much with golf that translates to business and to work and to life. And that's why so many parents want their kids to play golf. Is unlike most sports where it's a one-to-one sport where everything is your fault. Everything is your responsibility. And it's like keeping score. I heard the same story on the golf team this year. It's like, well, I wasn't keeping my own score. I had the other person do it. And I said, well, that's your first mistake, because how can you audit to know if the scores are right or wrong?
Oh dear. Yeah.
I'm keeping score in my head. Well, that's a bad idea. That's, again, something you can control or choose not to control. So again, those are life lessons that you learn. Is I'm not going to leave my score solely in the hands of someone else. I'm going to make sure I have my own score too, so we know this is accurate. I think a lot of the things that I've learned in golf, I think they've come from golf, and then they've been applied to business. Now, in this point of my career, I feel like, because I've written a book about a lot of this, there's probably few things, hopefully there's still some, that I can learn in business and apply to golf. But to me, it's been so much that's been learned in golf that's been applied to business. And one of them was just the positive self-talk and using positive affirmations. So, you know, when we have a client meeting, I talk to my team, I will often say things like, yes, this is a great opportunity for us. Like this is really awesome. I want to inject this positive energy into them and into the world, because I don't want them to have doubt. Well, like, oh, that client sounds really wishy-washy and going to be difficult to work with. I try to find the positives in everything. And so I'll point to the things that stuck out to me, which is huge opportunity. They were really nice, and I think they're really energetic about the opportunity to work with us, rather than picking out the 2 or 3 things as like, another one of these clients again. Not that that happens a lot, but I try to always find the good nuggets, and I try to expound upon that, because I want them to be positive about it too. And so on a golf hole, for example, maybe you start your round off very poorly. And, you know, for me, for someone who, you know, averages maybe 4 over par, something like that, if you start off bogey, 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 you could choose to say, wow, I'm on the number 1 handicap hole, and I'm slicing the ball. There's water on the right. You can choose to say, don't slice it, don't slice it. Or you can choose to look at the water, or you can choose to visualize the landing spot on the left side and strategically choose the right club and say, well, I know if I do this, I'm not going to X. Actually, I don't even want you to say that. I want you to say, I know if I choose this club and I take this approach, I'm going to land the ball in that zone over there. And so taking I'm not going to slice out, you shouldn't even say that stuff, because you should be focused on the place the ball is going to go, the club you're going to use, the outcome that's going to happen. And so I, again, try to do that with my clients. Is I think this is going to be a great opportunity. I think in 3 months we can achieve X. And so it's just me saying it out loud, because I can think it all I want, but if I think it and I say it, I tend to believe it. And so the same is true in golf. And it's just funny how the game of golf has taught me more about life than life has taught me about golf. And so just kind of interesting when you get to grow up around the game of golf.
And you tell this story in the book, and it's you're heading to the first tee, and there's a crowd, and there's the is it the pro is on the loud
Mhm.
hailer talking to someone else, but then they realize you're on the tee box?
Yeah. Now, I may not have realized it at that moment, but I realized it shortly after that moment. And I was a freshman trying out for the high school golf team.
Yeah.
And
Tell us the story. Yeah.
at the time, I was not a great golfer. I was good enough to make the team. So for whatever that's worth. But I remember tryouts. I was very nervous, very worried with what, people are going to think. And when you're 14, 15 years old, anybody would be. And I just remember we didn't do shotgun. So the freshmen would go off first, the seniors would go off last. And by the time you're teeing off, there's people congregating around the clubhouse watching, probably expecting you're going to bomb the ball down the middle. And I remember I looking back and I was just shaking because I was like, oh no, I better hit a good shot. I better hit a good shot. And I put the ball in the ground on the tee, and I mean, I could feel my hand shaking.
Yeah, I bet.
And I
Yeah.
was thinking, like, I need to hit a good shot. I need to hit a good shot. But I was really thinking about the trees on the right, really hugging the fairway. I'm like, that's exactly where my ball landed yesterday. Like, oh no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. And I made what I thought was a good swing. And of course, any slicer can appreciate the ball goes 150 yards straight and then off to the right. And it went in the trees. And I just kind of had a moment where I was like, God, I'm really thinking about that. Why am I thinking about this? Why am I thinking about slicing?
Mhm.
And I think years later, I realized that mindset was important. And it probably wasn't even into my mid 20s that I realized that I need to be the king of my mental domain. And I didn't know what I was doing with that yet, but I would use that phrase. And so that was probably the first moment in my life where I was old enough to know mindset. This is interesting. Why is this affecting me? Why is it that I cannot conquer this thinking? And I was too young, as most teenagers are, to really understand that. And I didn't have anyone to coach me on that either. People would just say, "Oh, it's your nerves." Oh, no, it's not your nerves. It is so many other things. And so, yeah, you could say, well, I wasn't a great golfer. I was a slicer. But no, I really think there's a lot of things I could have done differently. And there's a lot of things I do differently now to put myself in a better situation to succeed. And one of the sections in the book I talk a lot about is a high percentage shot. And if you know that that's likely the outcome, you can do a lot of things differently. Now, obviously, you could aim left. You could choose to go for what I call the layup. So in basketball, which is a international sport most people can appreciate, the easiest shot that goes in the most is the layup. And so where can you find the high percentage shot in golf? So often for us, especially the amateur golfers, is take a 5-wood off the tee, take a 3-iron off the tee. Don't hit a driver. Take the trouble out because it's much more probable you're going to hit a straight shot. And so same is true in business is what is going to help me achieve a better outcome. And so you're probably not in a good situation to try to hit home runs every time you sit down at your desk every morning. So you have to try to get on base, a baseball analogy. And so that's just so important in everything we do in trying to understand how am I going to get from point A to point B to point C, and in golf, point C to the hole.
This is a little bit of a curveball for the kind of podcast that we are, but I too have a business and marketing background, and we are in the space of podcasting and YouTubing and social media. And so really fascinated to hear some of your insights into a variety of things. So I've got a few questions, but the first one, when you look at your LinkedIn, and again, I'll pop that in the description, self-confessed digital dreamweaver. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So again, I talked about kind of my tagline, how I make social media so easy, it's fun. I had a call with a coach, like a one-to-one coach, kind of like what we do. And the guy had told me, and this was only maybe a year and a half ago, he said, you look like a guy who just manages social media. And that really hit close to home. And he said, well, let me tell you why, because I know you're interested. He said, if you go through 1,000 social media profiles of people who work in marketing right now, the title says marketer, digital marketing consultant, author, podcaster, whatever, speaker. And he said, who cares? How does that differentiate you? What does that even mean? It's like, oh, a guy that does social media. Great. Cool. Why should I hire you? And I looked at that and I said, you probably shouldn't. Probably shouldn't hire me. I'm not doing anything to market myself, to differentiate myself. And so again, and I use this a lot. I use myself as a guinea pig. And I tell that story before about how I had struggled introducing myself because I never like to talk about myself or try to position myself as looking cool or special. I think most people don't like doing that either. And so I had to come up with a title. Like, what is it that I do that sounds interesting and fun? So, I mean, I actually used ChatGPT and I typed in millions of different prompts to try to get some ideas. And one thing that popped up in a sentence was digital Dreamweaver. And I thought to myself, I'm an idea guy. I've always considered myself a bit of an idea factory where that's just something I'm very much creative. I'm not the creative that is an artist like some people in my industry, but I'm also very much a strategist. I like to, my brain just likes to think of a solution for a problem. I just immediately go to solution, which my wife doesn't always like. And that one resonated with me the most because I can help someone who dreams up an idea saying, hey, I've got a business and this is where I want to be. Well, I can dream up an idea and I can weave all these things together because you weave things together like you weave together a recipe. And I said, yeah, that in few words can distill down to what I do and what I'm passionate about. And so when you see digital Dreamweaver, I make social media so easy, it's fun again. And then say something after that, I forget. But I hope that when you look at my profile, you say, you know what? There are literally millions of people who do what you do, Chris, but you have positioned yourself to stand out. Now, I hope most people think that that's better, think it's cool, think it's interesting, because as a marketing professional, if that's what I do for other people, I have to do it for myself. And I've worked for a social media agency. I've seen and been very close with other agencies. Most of them, self-proclaimed, are very bad at doing their own marketing. And it's not because they don't know how or they're not good at it. It's because they don't prioritize themselves. And then when you go through these peaks and valleys, like, oh, why aren't we getting more business? Why aren't we getting more clients? Because you don't prioritize your own marketing, your own branding. And so to me, it's really important that you build the foundation for your own brand. And I'm going to underscore this, your personal brand. And the personal brand to me is more important than your business brand. So my marketing company, Lux Level Media, my personal brand, Chris Burns. People don't care about my company. People don't care about your company, but they care about you. And I'll tell you why. We connect with people. We don't connect with businesses. And I've asked this question many times when I do my public speaking is, big room full of 100+ people, who here has a very intimate connection with a brand? And if so, name it. And I heard some people say, well, Apple. I like Apple. Okay, why? Well, it's like, simplicity with products, really reliable, straightforward. I said, okay, but do you have like an emotional connection, like beyond that? So you love the products, right? You're a big advocate. Yeah, I am. Beyond that, where is the connection? He's like, I guess you're right. I don't. I'm just a big advocate. I said, you love the products, you like the company, but is there someone there? Like, do you love the CEO? Do you love someone else? No, I don't really know anyone that works at Apple. I said, okay, so you love the brand, you're an advocate, but you're not connected to the brand. No. But when you see the face of a company like a Gary Vaynerchuk, a Tony Robbins, a Damon John, I could name dozens and dozens of other people. Typically they build their brand and then they launch their products because then they have an audience to sell their products and services to. You don't want to be the guy or the company that creates the product and then has nobody to sell it to, because then you have to rely on advertising. And who likes ads? I mean, they're effective, yes, don't get me wrong, but most startups don't have the money to funnel all kinds of customers through these different funnels. And so to me, it's important to build that personal brand, build that audience, build that funnel. And then people say as a byproduct, well, you've just added so much value to my newsfeed that I want to work with you. I want to buy from you. I want to support your business.
And also, you mentioned there about ChatGPT. I wasn't going to ask this until you obviously said it, but what's your take on the tool, let's say?
I love it. I
Yeah.
love AI. I'm a big supporter of it. I'm fairly open about it, but I think that there are a lot of people that are worried and scared that maybe it could impact their job or take their job. I don't think that'll happen. For the people that are not totally familiar with ChatGPT or AI, artificial intelligence, as we call it, it is basically a robot. It's a platform that you insert prompts. So you tell it what you want, and it could say something like, give me 10 recipes for pot. I want to make chili for dinner tonight. Give me 10 recipes. Okay. Well, it's only as good as the prompt, as the information you give it. And even then, it does feel very hollow. It does feel robotic at times. It cannot deliver a humanized feel. So any outcome, especially if you're going to publish something or put it online, probably needs to be edited, revised. And even then, I would say, you want to probably add to it. You want to modify it. You want to make it your own. So to me, I really use it as a way to get over a blank page, a blank slate. A lot of people struggle, not me so much, but at times they get this level of anxiety when there's nothing on the sheet, nothing on the page. And so if you can start by having, chapter outlines, if you can start by saying, hey, give me 5 talking points I can write about as it relates to Facebook marketing. Well, boom, I could put those prompts in and I can have topics within that blog post or that newsletter that I can write about. And it's a lot easier. And you can really, you could shave anywhere from 20% to 75% of your time in writing by using this tool. But I do not encourage anybody to take what it gives you and publish it as your own, because people will probably see at some point that feels robotic and stale or sterile, as I like to say. So I do use it pretty regularly, but it's really more as an idea generation tool than it is automating my workflow. So I see a lot of people liking it, and I think it will grow and take on. I do have access to Google Bard now, which I need to dive into more. I think AI will be much bigger in years to come. But what we don't know is that AI already exists in dozens and dozens of platforms, hundreds of platforms online. And most of us are already using AI in some capacity, and we don't even know it.
Speaking of the introduction of AI into the market and into the kind of work you're doing, bearing in mind you've got over 20 years experience in the marketing space, what have been, and this is again quite broad, the biggest changes that you've seen in the digital space?
Yeah, I think that as we age, talking about adults like you and I who have children, the generations before us, they are the younger generations, I'll just say, they are utilizing social media different than we are. So I'll give you a quick story. Quick example is I was teaching social media marketing at a local university last fall. And one of the first assignments we did was a self-audit of the profiles we have, what we're posting, what we do online, what we consume, who we follow, etc. And as we wrapped up the subject or the class project, we had just a whole class session on what were some of the themes we identified. And one of the students said, it was really interesting to me, only one student in the whole class uses Facebook. 1 out of 34 use Facebook. And we're talking about juniors and seniors who are probably 19 to 22 years old.
Yeah.
And 3 of them or 4 of them had it, but only because of the Facebook marketplace where they can buy and sell things. And one of them was a relatively active user, but not in the same probably type of activeness as you and I. And so what are they doing? What are they using? Well, they love Snapchat. Snapchat is their number one means of communication. They love TikTok and YouTube to consume media. They will use Instagram, but they use social media very passively, meaning they don't do a lot of posting. They don't comment on a lot of stuff. They will like things, but they even then they use it as a tool to consume media. Like that is their television, by the way.
Yeah.
That is, unless they're streaming something, or playing video games,
right?
They get their information from their phone, from social platforms, and so they These are not kids or young adults who watch TV and sitcoms like we grew up doing. So that's really interesting. And then emerging platforms for them are Be Real, Visco. There's also some others that have kind of popped up in the last year that are so small they're hardly worth mentioning. But it is interesting to see a platform come in and take some market share. Like no one thought that would happen to Facebook and Instagram. And then TikTok came along, and then Snapchat came along, and now there's Be Real and Visco and you name it, Pinterest. There's always other platforms that are come along. So I think that the way the younger people and the generation that'll come along after them, they're going to use social media totally different. In fact, that generation, the kids that are in high school and middle school now, they will, if not maybe the kids who are in grade school, they're going to grow up in a VR world. Things are going to look vastly different for them than they did for us. And as we turn into our grandparents, we're going to say, wow, this digital stuff is crazy. Well, I'm telling you right now, in 5 years, 10 years, the VR headsets are going to be so common. And there's going to be probably as many VR headsets as there are televisions. I just think that now you can put on some VR goggles. You can go to Walmart, do your grocery shopping. I mean, it is insane. There are people buying property in the VR world. There are companies advertising, like Coca-Cola, spending millions of dollars in the VR world because that's where people are spending their time. And businesses go to where the attention is. And over time, that's going to continue to grow. I'm not saying that's what you should be doing right now, but I'm watching and I'm observing, and I'm genuinely very curious. And so I see that. But I also think that Facebook probably won't be the behemoth it is in 3 or 4 years. Just by default, a lot of people have been frustrated with their privacy policies and their algorithm changes and some of the freedom of speech stuff that allegedly some things get canceled, or what you can and can't say. And so I just think that there's always going to be opportunity for a new disruptor in the field. And my prediction is that there'll be, maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's not, maybe it's a new platform. There will be a new, bigger, better player, and sometime in the next 3 to 5 years.
So sitting here now, how do you, as someone in this space, how do you project or see what the opportunities are coming? I know it's a very difficult question to know because who knows what's coming, obviously, but as a marketeer, what are your opportunities?
Yeah. So the thing I'll start with is I try to stay very tuned into the industry, and there are some big news outlets like Social Media Today, Social Media Examiner, and there are some other podcasts. So I'm often reading, I'm watching, I'm trying to educate myself on what other people think are the future of the industry, because if I can talk about it, I think I'll have more credibility with my clients. Because I'm also, and this is the other important part of the equation, if you're a business owner, you should be an early adapter. And I do hear this a lot. I hear the opposite, which is, I'm afraid, I'm just worried about people leaving me a negative review. I'm worried about what people are going to think of my podcast. And my answer, you can't run a successful business scared.
Yeah.
Period. You can't. And if you are scared, you will never reach the level of success that you want, because you're too worried about what other people are thinking. And so again, going back to the king of the mental swing, being king of your mental domain, if that's the case, you're not worried about the white noise. You just go and do it, and you try it, and you say, hey, you know what? ChatGPT sucks. It didn't work for me. Okay, fine. You used it enough. Google ads don't work for me. I would disagree, because you're probably doing it wrong, but you have to try things. And I think what you'll find if you are an early adapter, just like these algorithms I talk about so often, if you were to post a video on TikTok 3 to 5 years ago, let's just say you posted 100 videos, you were probably going to get one that had 100,000 or maybe even 500,000 views. Because you know what? There weren't 10 million or 100 million people posting content. It was a lot easier to stand out. It was more consumers than it was producers of content. And so all of a sudden the algorithm changes, and it changes again. And now they're prioritizing ads. So now you're competing with advertising. So my TikTok videos, I have a bad one that 35 people see, and I have a good one that 500 people see. 3, 4, 5 years ago, the minimum amount of views you'd get is 1,000. So you're not even a like middle adapter. You are a late adapter if you're getting on now. And so the same is true of like YouTube Shorts or anything else that comes on. If you can be an early adapter, what is there to be scared of? What do you worry about? Failing? Well, you'll learn something if you fail. Failure is great, I think. And again, that's part of the book. If you're interested in that comment, you got to buy a copy of the book. But I think it's so important to be an early adapter, because you can then enjoy the fruits of the greater reach, the greater learning. You can accelerate your outcome because you were there before anybody else, before most people. And so I'm always looking for, where is there the least amount of noise? It's usually being an early adapter, going to platforms where the competition isn't. And to me, I just think you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And so ultimately, I am looking at things that work. And I know that's part of your question. So right now, what I'm telling my clients is stop posting organically to your newsfeed or to your business page as much. So what I mean by that is, rather than trying to post or thinking you need to post 5 to 7 times a week, you shouldn't. And here's why. The algorithm on Facebook and Instagram specifically is set to about 6% organic reach, meaning you are lucky if 6 or 7% of your followers even see your content. Now, again, that is not an opinion. That's not my thought. That is an actual fact. So that is true for my page, for your page, for anyone listening. I'm like, well, why is my post only getting to 100 people, and then the 3 likes I get are from my friends and family? Well, it's a pay-to-play platform. So if you want to get your content in front of new eyeballs, new people, you have 2 options. A, you can advertise, which you should. You should always, if you have a business and you want to grow that and scale, you have to have an ad budget. You cannot hope and pray people come to you. The other option, if you're more interested, it's like, Chris, give me the good stuff. Well, this is the good stuff. This is the thing that if you take anything away from your business and marketing, this is where I want you to focus, because I think you'll come back and thank me. I did a test I have this party bike pedal pub business that I operate here, very small local business, and it is seasonal. So it's maybe May through September. And I did a test on Instagram where I posted 3 photo posts to my newsfeed, to my profile. And then I posted 3 reels, which are the vertical video for the platform. And on average, my photo posts would get anywhere from 50 to maybe 75 reach. That's how many people would see the post. Kind of embarrassing for having close to 1,000 followers. And engagement wise, I would be lucky if the best post I had 7 likes, but typically it's around 4 or 5 on average. And again, kind of embarrassing. But I like to think it's not my fault, because I try to put out really good content. And then I posted 3 videos, which are the reels, the vertical video. And this is not a joke. They were over 6,000 times better, 6,000% better reach, and 3,000% better engagement. Now, I'm not talking about 25% or 75 or even 200%. I'm talking about 1,000 times, 3,000 and 6,000 times. So we're getting 6,000, 7,000 views. We're getting 3,000 plus engagements on a post, when before I'd have 4 or 5 on average. So when I do this in a slideshow, usually my next slide is WTF. What the hell are you doing, banging your head against the wall, posting organically to your 500 followers, hoping and praying, putting all this time into all this content, just, oh, I hope people are going to buy something. I hope they're going to engage with me. Well, they're not, because it's not that your content sucks. It's that the algorithm doesn't work that way anymore. You shouldn't be putting that time into something that doesn't work. So going back to my comment before, you have to be very agile. You have to be willing to adapt. And that is harder as we get older, because we just get so comfortable in things that work. And so you have to have that early adapter mindset where it's like, okay, this just isn't working anymore. This isn't successful. What can I do differently? And the same is true, again, going back to golf, like, hey, this practice strategy doesn't work anymore. Or golf's not working because I don't have 3 hours to practice a week. I have kids and a family and a business now. What can I do to get better or stay as good as I am? And so you have to adapt. And the vertical video, by the way, I'll create these. I'll take my podcast and I'll cut them into micro clips, and I will post that on every platform. And that to me saves a lot of time, because every platform you can post a vertical video now, including LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest.
What other big challenges are we going to have in terms of posting, in terms of our marketing for the next couple of years?
I think what you'll see with Reels and YouTube Shorts and TikToks is that there's going to be more competitors coming into it. And so, probably in a matter of 6 months to 2 years, it's going to end up just like the Facebook newsfeed, where that's what everyone else is going to be doing. And so, you'll have to find the next big thing. And there will be the next big thing. I don't know what that's going to be, but I know we'll continually have challenges. Just like at some point, they're going to take away retargeting. So, if you run ads, and you retarget people, which by the way is probably some of the best money you can spend on ads, because I'll just say this, I have to clarify what that is. If you put a pixel, which is a piece of code on your website, and you run an ad on Facebook or Instagram, let's just choose those platforms, and someone clicks on your ad and they engage with the ad or they go to your website, you can then serve them an ad again. And the reason why that's so effective is because that person obviously took an interest. There's a 99.5% chance that it wasn't an accident. It's not a banner ad or something like that. So there's something about the message or the call to action or the product and service that you're selling that they had an interest in. And if they have an interest, let's continue to nudge them, just poke them and say, hey, look at us over here. We got this cool thing and now it's discounted and now we've got free shipping and now there's this and that. And so you can kind of sweeten the deal, and the conversion rates are much greater. Because why if you have the choice, would you rather serve your ad, a more expensive ad, to someone who's interested, who's in the market buying, or people who have no idea who you are, who are not actively buying?
Yeah.
I'll pay 50% more. I'll pay 75% more to serve my ads to people who are currently actively in the market that want to buy something that's like my product and service, rather than people who have no idea who I am, who are probably not actively searching or buying. And so there's a lot of things like that that could go away. Facebook has obviously removed a lot of targeting options over the last couple of years with some of the privacy issues they've dealt with, GDPR, those types of things. So it's going to continue to evolve. I don't exactly know what all of it looks like, and I hate to try to play the Nostradamus role where I'm making predictions, but I just think that if you stay tuned in to what's happening, you can be an early adapter and you can try things. And the early adapters are almost always the successful ones, unless, of course, and this is the caveat, you put all your eggs into one basket. Because as you know, TikTok, at least in the United States, it was just banned in one state out of all the states. And so if you live in the state of Montana and you were a TikTok influencer, you're out of luck. You have to now move to a new platform. And so it's very important in marketing that you do not have all of your eggs in one basket, that you can be diverse, because something could happen, catastrophic or for other reasons. So I just think you got to be agile, flexible. You got to stay tuned in. And if you can't, then you need to rely on a marketing coach or a consultant, maybe an agency, to help you with that, who is staying in tune, because 3-6 months from now, there's going to be a new trend. And there's going to be maybe a new platform. And so you just have to evolve, because not everything works all the time.
Now, you're talking about content. We talked a little bit about content, and you've mentioned it already, but the Hustle Nation podcast, which I've listened to, which is great, with, is it a colleague of yours, Dustin?
Yeah, business partner. So we're partners in the Hustle Leaders Network business, where we do a lot of training for executives, for teams, for businesses, really, really about efficiency and outcome, because so many people, they want to do something, but it's not a goal. It's not a strategy. It's just a want. And when you want something, it's less likely to happen than when you have a goal and a strategy for something. And so a lot of it comes around productivity, efficiency, management of time, and something I say a lot, which is being very crystal clear with your vision, what you want to come, what is the outcome you want. And I'm telling you right now, it's amazing to me when I ask this question, because I ask it a lot with my marketing clients, is at the end of 2023, it will be a good year because of what? Or what is your vision? Like, what do you want to achieve in this calendar year? And the answer is always, if you're watching this, they kind of turn their head, they look up, they look around, and they're just thinking. And I immediately will call BS, and I'll say, you don't know. You obviously don't know, do you? And they're like, well, I want more downloads and I want more sales. And I'm like, you want, Wanting is not a plan. Wanting is not a
Mm.
strategy. You're just making stuff up. Like, well, yeah, that is what I want. I'm like, well, yeah, we all want that, but that's not
Yeah.
a plan. That's not a strategy.
Yeah. How are you going to
And
achieve?
so,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's probably one of the most important parts of the whole equation, especially with my clients, is getting very crystal clear on what it is that you want to achieve
Great. I like that a lot.
quantifiably.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's a brilliant podcast. It's really, really good.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's excellent. And I was going to ask a kind of, bearing in mind we're on a podcast now, that kind of general, the general view in the market about podcasts and how quickly they're increasing in popularity and number, for which I'm well aware they are. Where does the podcast sit in terms of its power in the marketing space, would you say?
Excellent question. So I'll give you my point of view. My opinion would be that podcasting is huge. More and more people are listening and consuming and talking about podcasts than ever before. I believe, based on some of the data I'm seeing, that it will continue to grow, and probably continue to grow for the next several years. So I don't believe we've seen a peak at that. I'm also very curious because a lot of the young people today, young adults and teenagers, are growing up in a car where, they don't listen to the local radio. If they're
No.
not streaming music on Spotify or iTunes, they are listening to a podcast. And a lot of colleges and schools are referencing a podcast to listen to. A lot of people are doing audiobooks. And
Yeah.
so you see with the active lifestyles, people are walking around listening to music or podcasts. So I think it'll grow. It's also unfortunately very saturated. So I've talked to people who are my clients or prospective clients, and they say, I just don't know. There's too much competition, and I'm being advised not to. And I said, well, yeah, if you are like everybody else and you have what I would call a boring, typical, generic podcast, it probably won't stand out and it will take a long time. However, if you have a point of difference, which again, I go back to with me being a marketing consultant, if you have a way that you can position yourself as different and fun or entertaining, you can grow. And I've talked to people who have said that they really started to hit some unique numbers when they got to 25 episodes published. And I had talked to another gentleman who said, to me, the defining moment was when I published my 50th episode. He said, it was amazing to me. After that point, people started saying, like, oh my God, you have an amazingly established show. And he's like, I've only been doing this for like a year and a quarter. I've just produced an episode every week. But all of a sudden, when I got to that 50 mark, people saw me as being established. They saw I was starting to get better guests on the show. And the guests were the ones referring people to my show. And he said, honestly, after about 30 or 40 episodes, I pick up at least one client from every single show passively, just organically. And he said, for me, almost year and a half of producing made it all worthwhile because it starts to pay dividends once you become established. And so not many people want to be one of one. They don't want to be on the first episode because they know you don't have as many downloads in the beginning. And it's also hard to attract those big guests when you're brand new. So you have to create a plan, crystal clear vision, strategy, all the things I talk about. You have to be consistent. You got to stick to it. You got to stick to it. Ours is not perfect, but we are getting better. We're trying to improve every single time. We're trying to find really interesting guests, not just taking anybody on who maybe doesn't have a topic that relates to what your show is about. But we also do try to step outside of our comfort zone and talk about things that maybe some of the men listening to our show or the women listening to our show might be interested in. And so you have to be a bit diverse, because if all we talked about was leadership or sales, people would just eventually tune it out because there's only so much of that to go around. A lot of us coaches and consultants grow up or start our business having to do nothing but cold outreach, cold email, cold calling, soliciting, advertising, etc., to get our client base. But when you become very consistent and established, the tables start to turn at a certain point, and all of a sudden people are coming to you because you become the thought leader, you become the subject matter expert. And that's what I said about before with your personal brand, is that now you're becoming established, you're becoming rooted, And people don't see you as the guy or the gal that's always trying to spam you in the inbox. They see you as the guy and the gal who's always adding so much value. So they become interested, they start subscribing, and then maybe a year later, they start saying, I want to book some time with you on your calendar. So that's why I just say you have to be consistent and patient over time. And we could talk. I mean, I could give you so many tips on things you could do, but you got to stick to it.
We are coming into a close. I did want to ask you a really nice kind of a big old broad question. Again, I've got a few of these broad questions really, but your proudest achievement in all of this kind of development you've had over the last 20, 30 years, from the book to playing the game to your business, what that might be, and what continues to inspire you to keep going.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple things that come to mind, and to me, I don't know that it's any one thing, but I keep in mind some of the achievements that I've had, and the recognitions, and some of those things keep me going. One of them was publishing my book. As someone who's self-proclaimed a terrible writer, that was a big challenge, and I went through, moving, having children, getting married, moving again, having a life-threatening health condition, and yet to me, just getting over that hump and doing it was one of the more challenging things I've done in life. I'm also, very, very fortunate to have started and built some businesses. And just last year, I sold my first business, which was a kind of a defining moment to know that I started something from scratch and was able to sell it. And so now that allows me to be a little more laser focused on my marketing business. And then most recently, I was awarded from the local Chamber of Commerce 2022 Most Inspiring Business Person of the Year. And while I don't know that thank you, I don't know that I'm all that inspiring in the community. Apparently other people see that. And I was very, very thankful. I have so much gratitude for that, because I don't necessarily want to win awards, and I almost didn't want to go. I tried to think of different ways I could get out of going to this banquet to go see the award. Cause I don't want to position myself and say, oh, look at me. But as a couple of people said, take it in, like, just be proud of it. Don't worry about what other people think. Right. And I did. And I have the award sitting over here, and I get to look at it every day and just remind myself that I am good enough, right? I am doing the right thing, and I am on the right path. And so you have to celebrate those small victories. And I do, mentally, internally. I will post all of this. I'll put all of this information in the description, books, podcast links. How can people best get in touch with you? Yeah, if you like anything I had to say, I would encourage you, please book some time with me, reach out, connect with me on LinkedIn or any platform you like. I genuinely love to help people, even if it's just you want to pick my brain about some marketing stuff. Happy to help in any capacity. In fact, if you go to my website, iamchrisburns.com, I have a Calendly link, and you can book 15 free minutes with me to do a business audit or a social media audit. And then definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. It's Chris B. Burns. There's 2 B's in the middle. And I have all kinds of resources and digital downloads. You can check the podcast out on iTunes or Spotify, Hustle Nation Podcast. And thank you so much for listening today. Thanks for having me. You're very welcome. It's been great. Thank you, Chris. Much appreciated, mate. Welcome back to the pod. Oof, nearly fell then. Welcome back. Thank you so much to Chris for taking the time to talk to me today. I know you are super busy, super busy. So I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that chat. Something a little bit different. I certainly did. Certainly picked up a lot of tips on marketing in general, and obviously, mindset is very close to my heart. So great chat. Something you might be interested in, if you click on the links in the description, you'll be able to organize a free social media audit with Chris, just by clicking on the link in his on his website or on LinkedIn. Those will all be in the description. Do take a look at the links in the description that takes you to my website, my social media accounts. Please feel free to click on those links, and if you'd like to spend a little bit of time with me, either on the golf course working on your mindset, perhaps you'd like to work with me to talk about how to get that job you've been hoping for,
or how to work on something in your personal life, in your relationships perhaps, then would love to talk to you. Please feel free, click on those links and let's organise a call. But in the meantime, thank you again for listening. Take care, be happy, and remember, it's never too late to work on your mindset.